This is 7 News, the voice of the coast.
Tonight, communities at their wits' end over the constant wave of crime. Macadamia farmers count the cost in Cyclone Alfred's wake. And then later in the national news, with Kirsty Fitzpatrick, a man accused of murdering a father faces court, and 3 hospitalised after a police car crashes during a pursuit.
7 News begins now.
Good evening. An Old Bar resident has bravely spoken out against the youth crime wave sweeping regional towns. He grew up in South Africa, a notorious crime-ridden state. Now he says he's worried that Australia could become just as dangerous without serious changes to laws.
Late at night, breaking into homes, stealing cars and causing trouble. Old Bar residents the latest victims to these opportunistic crimes.
If I was down probably 2 minutes earlier, I could have been stabbed.
Last month, Eugene Van Wyck was awoken by his vehicle being backed out of the driveway, then screeching down the street.
The adrenaline starts pumping, but you can't get to them because they're just too far.
2 hooded thieves had broken into the home.
They could obviously come in here, scope what they wanted to see, got to the keys, then saw mine.
A shock to his whole family, the South African-born citizen moving to Australia to escape the rampant crime.
I mean, I've got family all over the world. When they saw the post on Facebook, they were like, "Are you joking? Australia, coastal town, this kind of thing is happening. What's actually happening to the world?"
9 vehicles have been reported stolen in the town and surrounds since the start of the year. While police have made several arrests, they'll continue to deploy resources, keeping the community safe. Tanya Thompson recently brought the increasing concern of crime in the region to Parliament.
The Men's Labour government's soft on crime approach and failed bail reforms are failing our regional communities and most vulnerable.
She'll meet with the police minister this week to discuss the next course of action.
And is it somebody going to actually have to get killed before something actually gets done, or is the government going to wake up, the justice system going to change?
Hannah Hartup, 7 News.
Macadamia farmers across the Northern Rivers are counting the cost from storms generated by Cyclone Alfred. A month ago, harvest was only just beginning. Now the crop is seriously damaged. It's a recovery that could take years.
A large portion of crops sitting in a pile. A significant hit to the hip pocket.
So we're looking at a cumulative loss of about $250,000.
Harvesting season had just kicked off when Cyclone Alfred blew into town, decimating Tregeagle farmer Miles Gillespie's crops. 1,000 of his 5,000 trees affected.
It's a large enough number, and it's created a lot of labour and work to achieve a nice orchard environment again.
Root rot, now a major worry, a recovery that may take up to 5 years.
So essentially it's just a very long waiting game.
Some macadamias rendered useless already this season.
And obviously, as we're right at the start of the 2025 harvest, for some growers, that's a loss of crop with the limbs that have been snapped off.
Miles isn't the only one cursing Mother Nature. The local macadamia farming industry reeling.
There would be probably over 200 to 300 local macadamia producers in the Northern Rivers region.
Wet weather today creating more headaches.
This will delay further our efforts to achieve a nice, clean orchard environment.
But it's nothing they haven't been through before.
It's been a rough few years for lots of primary producers in this region.
Farmers now encouraged to fill out a disaster survey so funds can be allocated.
If you have had damage to your orchard, and that's either short-term damage in terms of crop or longer-term damage to trees and to orchard floor and to orchard infrastructure, is to register that through the disaster declaration system.
So the more people that fill out the survey, the better our chance of some recognition and some funding through the government.
Paul Jobber, 7 News.
More reliable access to water is just around the corner for residents in Willawarren. A major rebuild is now underway, which will also support the town in times of emergencies.
The first step for an $8 million water treatment plant in Willawarren. Not only a significant supply and quality upgrade, but also a game changer in times of natural disaster.
This area out of the whole Shire has probably been one of the most affected by those natural disasters. There was houses lost here in the Black Summer fires.
During times of fire, flood, drought and heavy rain, water has to be carted into the region due to a water supply system that is more than 60 years old.
In those times, the bores actually can either go underwater in terms of a flood or they can get really shallow. So drawing water from those bores is actually really challenging.
Now the state-of-the-art filtration system will not only shore up supply, but will be a vital asset in times of emergency.
There are lots of bushfires that happen in this area. So with this water treatment plant, we'll actually have capacity to really service our rural firefighting volunteers when they need to get water and get out and fight fires.
The new water treatment plant at Willawarrin is the first of several major builds totalling more than $250 million.
There's 5 projects to a total of $280 million. So, like I said, massive investment by council, and with that investment, we'll set the local government area up for many years to come.
The $8 million Willawarrin project includes $2 million from the state government. Samantha Crowe, 7 News.
A swimming facility built in the wake of tragedy has now had a $20 million upgrade. The Clarence Aquatic Centre is welcoming swimmers back for the first time in 2 years. A major reconstruction, including a new Olympic-sized pool, indoor pool, splash pad and new amenities. Now, the original facility was built halfway through last century after a punt capsized.
Tragedy back in 1943 when 13 Boy Scouts drowned tragically in the Clarence River. And Grafton said then that day that this can never happen again and our children need to learn how to swim.
Funding has also been secured for 2 new water slides, state and federal governments contributing $3.5 million to the upgrade. Empty shelves are becoming a common reality for major supermarkets, with bananas now the latest item in short supply. It's been a tough month for shoppers, but an even tougher month for farmers.
Fresh fruit and veg slowly lining the shelves of local suppliers, and it's bringing much needed relief for shoppers.
I like fresh produce of any kind. It always tastes better.
It's been a tough month for grocers. Cyclone Alfred's impact in northern New South Wales has affected transport and access to certain products like bananas. Weeks of empty shelves has been a reality for some producers, and there's still an impact.
Bananas weren't getting through and the cost and quality went down, where they were dragging green bananas out of storage early to try and have something to fill the shelves with.
But while fresh fruit and veggies are making a comeback, the availability of eggs is still a concern. Free-range eggs are in short supply as there are not enough laying chickens to meet demand. It's going to take a lot longer than we think before numbers are back to normal.
It takes 21 weeks or 22 weeks for a chook before it starts laying, so that's a long time, so it's going to take a while, yeah.
The supply-demand issue is seeing egg prices soar.
I feel like anywhere you go, they're really hard to come by, but just take them when they're there, I guess.
So you've got to sort of go to more than one shop sometimes to find a few things, eggs being one of them.
There's also been a struggle to get live chooks, with the birds selling out as soon as they arrive in store. But hope is on the horizon. A new crop of chicks are on the way.
We've got about 400 turning up next Wednesday, so that'll probably, the way the demand is, it'll probably last 2 weeks.
Amy O'Halloran, 7 News.
Mid-Coast residents are raising concerns online over suspected vandalism of memorial plaques on the Foster-Tuncurry breakwall. At least 15 are suspected to have been removed or damaged in the last month. No reports have been made to local police. Tenterfield's Boy from Oz has been honoured with a blue plaque for helping shape New South Wales history. Peter Allen, born Peter Woolnough, is one of Australia's most beloved and successful performers, dazzling locals with his piano performances from a young age to make a name for himself on the international stage. Tenterfield Sadler and I Still Call Australia Home, his most well-known songs.
Time is a traveller, Tenterfield Sadler, turn your head. Right again, Jackaroo.
Peter Allen was an icon for the rainbow community. Kirsty joins us now for a look at all of today's weather conditions. And Kirsty, a little bit wet out there today.
Yes, plenty of unsettled weather. Nick, hello to you and good evening, everyone. Quite a bit of isolated showers around yesterday with grey skies blanketing the north coast this morning. Showers and storms around today too, mainly around and north of Coffs Harbour. Coffs Harbour Airport picked up 24 millimetres of rain, 42 millimetres at Grafton Airport and 50 at Sawtell. Further north, Casino through the Northern Rivers has already seen 25 millimetres of rain. Widespread cloud kept the lid on overnight temperatures, which remained in the 20s for most of us. Maximums also around the mid to high 20s. Now, cloud will stick around tonight. Showers and storms also increasing across the week. We could have some very heavy falls towards the weekend. I'll have that forecast a little later on.
All right, plenty to keep across, Kirsty.
Yeah, that's
Thank you. Up next in 7 News, funding for frontline family and domestic violence services across the state, and how experts plan to boost the endangered sea lion population.
I'm Kirsty Fitzpatrick. Later this news hour, 2 police officers injured in a pursuit. How did the chase go wrong? Also tonight, a first glimpse of Pope Francis returns to the Vatican after battling pneumonia. And a fresh twist in an NRL investigation. Video emerges of the Rabbitohs mascot pushing a child.
The Manning Against Mining
A career in primary healthcare
Association is taking their fight against future developments to council on Wednesday. Clean energy company MCI Carbon obtained licences to explore the Mount George area in 2022. Now, the community says they're concerned it could lead to open-cut mines in the future. Councillors will discuss their concerns at the meeting that same day. $110 million will be invested into frontline family and domestic violence services across New South Wales. The renewed funding is part of the state and federal government's 5-year national partnership agreement to help end gender-based violence. Now, the money will help services provide and deliver critical family care and recruit 500 new frontline workers right across the country. And of course, if anyone you know needs support, you can contact 1-800-RESPECT. That's 1-800-737-732. New research is looking at ways to boost the number of critically endangered sea lions in the wild. Marine scientists are now focusing their efforts on the species' key hunting device, their whiskers.
Scientists are on a mission to save the Australian sea lion from extinction.
Unfortunately, the research shows that the populations are continuing to decline.
Bristling with health and vitality, 7-year-old Storm is a star attraction at the Wildlife Sanctuary, stacking on over 40 kilos since October, eating up to 10% of his body weight every day, a near-perfect scientific specimen.
So he's definitely packing on the kilos, and he's the biggest he's ever been, and he's continuing to grow every day.
The whiskers of the 220-kilo male are a major focus for German researchers, a highly sensitive hunting device used to locate underwater prey on the ocean floor, including crustaceans.
They're actually hollow and actually help to track those vibrations in those deep, dark, murky waters where these guys will be hunting.
The whiskers of the Australian sea lion much smoother and straighter than most other sea lion species.
And of their hunting strategy more on the surface of the water, searching for fish and hunting for penguins and other species.
The findings on behaviour, diet and life cycles used to help boost numbers, informing fisheries along the southern and western coast where the population live.
And then they can manage the fisheries down there more appropriately to ensure that we're conserving the food items that the animals out in the wild are going to need.
In total, the university research project examined the whiskers of 32 species of sea lion. Past research based at the Wildlife Sanctuary involves replacing tracking devices with AI recognition. Liz Penny, 7 News.
The Barney Miller Classic has staged its quarter-century tournament in style. Coast Coast teen Hamish Harrigan taking the trophy in the under-16s final. Tweed's head Amy Argy Ross, the women's champion. Sawtell's Main Beach hosting 170 entries from the south coast all the way to the Sunshine Coast. The 3-day classic delivering small, clear swell throughout the event. Now, it did raise close to $50,000. It was all for injured motorcycle rider Mikey Thorncroft. Still to come in 7 News, the North Coast Premier League's new boys impress, and one North Coast Bulldogs side to win one win from Grand Final glory.
Tomorrow on Sunrise, are your wooden utensils making you sick? The new health warning for families.
Plus, meet the two young men signing up to seniors classes, how they're charming their elders and winning millions of hearts online.
See you in the morning.
It's been a weekend of some mixed fortunes for the North Coast Bulldogs junior sides. Their under-17s women and under-18 men's teams both needing wins to advance through to the grand final.
A grand final place for the women's under-17s North Coast Bulldogs after a hard-fought win in their semi-finals, but a narrow loss for the under-18s men.
Definitely mixed results. Lisa Fiola got the win in very, very tough conditions. It was pouring rain the whole day, so they're extremely proud of them, but the boys had a very heartbreaking loss.
In the Lisa Fiola Cup, the women continued their undefeated streak, claiming a 12-8 win over the Northern Rivers Titans at Port Macquarie's regional stadium. Their resilience bringing them home.
They had a few errors and a few things didn't go their way, but just the way that they just sort of stayed together and they stuck to the game plan and didn't panic. That was probably the highlight, where they knew that they sort of could come over the top if they just stayed focused.
This weekend, they'll take on the Northern Tigers in Canberra, a shot at the title against a team they defeated in the earlier rounds of the competition.
They're a very, very well-coached side, and I think they'll be very, very hard to beat again. They made the grand final last year, so they'll be looking to go one better as well, so we have to be on our game.
For the men in the Laurie Daly Cup, their journey is over after being knocked out 18-12 by the Macarthur West Tigers.
They got in front by 2 points. We sort of, late in the late stages of the second half, but just silly errors. They invited the other team back and they sort of finished over the top.
The women's grand final game starts at 10 o'clock on Saturday. Samantha Crowe, 7 News.
The reigning champions of the North Coast Premier League have laid a solid foundation for the season ahead, but the Northern Storm didn't have it all their own way in a tough pre-season clash with new boys Yamba.
Premier League newcomers Yamba Breakers have dished up a pre-season scare, giving the Northern Storm goalie a thorough workout.
They sort of had a bit of a counter-attack approach and sat back deep, and it took us a while to work them out and break them down.
The reigning premiers, off to a slow start, caught off guard by the Breakers' intensity, pressing high and carving out several chances.
I think some of the boys were a bit flat, including myself, and a lot of injuries came in.
An unlucky strike sidelining Ben Dove, breaking his ankle minutes out from half-time.
I went to win the ball and I put my foot down and I stepped on someone's foot, and my ankle touched the ground and the bottom of my foot didn't, so it kind of just, snapped.
The Breakers maintaining the pressure.
A couple of ex-NPL players, so they're very handy for their team, and they've got a little bit of experience as well.
The Storm resurging in the second half. 17-year-old Mark McCarthy rising to glance home a perfectly weighted header into the corner. James Zhu doubled the lead, the live wire forward, planting Tom Sweeney's cross in the back of the net. The Northern Storm winning 3-0 ahead of this weekend's first-round clash with the Coffs Coast Tigers.
Overall, pretty happy with the way we controlled the game. We had a lot of possession, we moved it round, we didn't panic, and we waited for our time to take our chances, which was really pleasing.
The Storm also through to round 6 of the Australia Cup with a 3-0 win over Port. Liz Penny, 7 News.
Storms and even a few showers on the horizon. Up next, Kirsty will have your local weather forecast.
Good evening, everyone. A trough sitting over the northeast of the state is generating showers and isolated storm activity, while a ridge of high pressure is allowing for clear sunny skies for the rest of the state. Over the next few days, though, this trough will continue to build throughout Queensland, and it will move south, sweeping into New South Wales along the coast and into the northern inland. Heavy rainfall is expected for those of us across the north coast. Now, we can see that rainbound skirting around southern parts of the state, focusing on this northeastern quadrant. That leaves the coast in the firing line for some potentially very heavy rainfall. Well over 100 millimetres is forecast this week. In fact, we could see isolated areas of 60 to 70 millimetres on Friday alone. There is a risk of possible flash flooding for our coast once again, but this rainfall very much based on the movements of this trough throughout Queensland which could change. Let's take a look at tomorrow first. About 10 millimetres likely along the coast, lighter showers for some, and that wet weather is likely to fall right throughout the day. Cloudy too, with an east to southeasterly breeze. Temperatures sitting around the mid to high 20s, so similar to what we've had today. On the waters, around 1 to 1.5 metre seas, with our swells sitting around 3 feet, winds easterly at 15 to 20 knots. Heading to our Wednesday again, another chance of around 5 to 10 millimetres of rain. The lowest risk of wet weather is around the mid-coast on Wednesday, south of Coffs Harbour. Further north and certainly around the northern rivers, we're expecting to see heavier showers. Again, relatively light winds and those temperatures remaining in the mid to high 20s. And it's much the same for Thursday, but we'll start to see those rain totals increasing slightly. We're certainly watching how these weather systems develop over the coming days. So at the minimum, we could see no more than around 1 millimetre or so through the lakes of Port Macquarie. At the maximum, we're expecting falls closer to 15 to 20 millimetres. But then it's into Friday and Saturday when our daily rain totals could peak at that 60 to 70 millimetre mark. Plenty to keep across. We'll be watching just how that wet weather system develops as it moves through Queensland and tracks into northern New South Wales.
Yeah, we certainly will, Kirsty. I can tell you've been busy.
Very much so.
Thank you. Well, that is your local news for tonight. I'm Nick Hose. Thanks so much for your company. Stay with us here at 7. Up next, Kirsty has your latest national news. Have a great night, and we'll see you tomorrow at 6.